Welcome to Mr. Disturbing. Tonight, we're plunging into the dark heart of the Appalachians with some truly unsettling true horror stories. That'll keep you up all night. If you're brave enough, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next descent into fear. My name is Eric Dalton. I'm 45 years old, and I work as a freelance survey photographer for real estate and environmental firms. It's not glamorous work, but it keeps me outdoors, away from people, and that's always suited me fine. I've spent most of my adult life moving between counties, sleeping in motels, pointing my camera at farmland and timber lots. It's quiet, honest work. Nothing in it ever scared me. Until last fall. I had a client in rural Western Virginia, an older couple trying to sell a piece of forest property they had inherited. The land had belonged to their grandfather, untouched since the 1950s, about 120 acres of thick mountain woods near a place called Laurel Branch. I was told it had no structures, no trails, and hadn't been walked in decades. I'd have to hike it myself. No service roads, no GPS signal, no drone access. Just me, my camera, and whatever was left of the old survey markers. I was used to terrain like this. I'd shot properties deeper in the Blue Ridge before. I knew what to expect. Uneven paths, fallen trees, overgrown brush. But this place, it was different. The moment I stepped onto that land, something felt off. The tree line was too quiet. The forest floor was covered in thick, dry leaves that swallowed sound. It had rained a few days before, but the ground was bone dry. No birds, no wind, no insects. Just silence so dense it pressed on your chest like water. I took a few test shots and started eastward toward the ridgeline, marking trees with bright tape as I went. About half an hour in, I noticed something strange. A tree, tall, dead, split down the middle, with thick black mold covering one side, shaped almost like a handprint. I took a photo, then another. When I reviewed the images on my camera screen, something didn't match. In the second photo, there was a figure in the distance, barely visible, behind a tree. I zoomed in. The shape was humanoid, but wrong. Too thin, too long. I looked up. Nothing there. I chalked it up to lighting, a trick of the lens, and kept walking. About a mile in, I found a stone marker, maybe 2 feet tall, covered in moss. It wasn't part of any modern survey grid. It looked older, handmade. Carved into it were 3 letters, SVE. I took a picture, but this time the camera wouldn't save the image. The screen froze, then went black. I checked the battery, still full, but the camera wouldn't turn back on. I took out the memory card and slipped it into my pocket. I'd never had a malfunction like that before. As I turned to head back, I noticed something else. My trail markers were gone. Every strip of bright orange tape I had tied along the way vanished. The trees were bare, as if someone had walked behind me one by one and removed them. I stood there in the middle of the forest, light fading, unsure of where I had come from. I listened. Still no wind, no birds, just that thick, unnatural quiet. I tried my compass. The needle spun slowly in circles. I checked my phone. No signal. I started walking in the direction I thought I had come from. But the trees didn't look familiar. Every few minutes I passed something, a stump, a fallen log, that I swore I had already passed. After the third time seeing the same thick-rooted oak, I stopped. My chest tightened. I was walking in circles. And then I saw the shape again. About 20 feet ahead, behind the trees. Tall, still, watching me. I blinked. It was gone. My breath caught. I turned slowly. Nothing behind me, but I felt it now. That weight. Like something was pushing down on me. Like the trees themselves were watching. I kept walking, faster now, trying to stay calm. That's when I saw the second marker. Same stone, same moss, same letters, SVE. But I had made no turns. I had walked in a straight line. Somehow I had ended up back where I started. I stared at the stone marker for a long time. My brain tried to explain it. Maybe I had doubled back without noticing. Maybe the terrain had confused me. But the truth sat heavier than that. I knew I hadn't turned. I knew the direction I was walking, and yet there it was again. The same marker, the same mold-covered letters, SVE. I reached out and touched the stone. It was warm. Warmer than it should have been. The moss felt soft, wet. But when I looked at my fingers, they weren't green. They were red. I wiped them on my pants and stepped away. I didn't want to understand. I just wanted to get out. I tried again, this time walking faster, in a straight line, marking trees with scratches from my pocket knife instead of tape. I counted every step. 412, 587, 902. The light shifted, grew dimmer. Though the sun hadn't set, I kept walking. No sounds, not even my own footsteps now, just the pounding of my heart. After about an hour, I stopped to catch my breath, and that's when I saw them. The same knife scratches, on the same trees. I had made a complete loop. I didn't scream, I didn't panic. I just stood there letting the silence press into my bones. The forest wasn't letting me go. I started to feel watched again. That tight feeling on the back of the neck. The way you feel when someone is too close, just behind you. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Instead, I walked again. I picked a new direction. Any direction. Just moved. But the deeper I went, the stranger the woods became. The trees weren't just old. They were wrong. Some of them grew in spirals. Others leaned together unnaturally, like they were huddling. I passed a clearing where the grass was dead in a perfect circle. And in the center, another stone. This one had no letters. Just a flat, smooth top, like an altar. My stomach turned. I didn't take a photo. My camera was still dead. The silence now felt alive, like it had shape, like it was listening. I saw the figure again, this time closer, not hiding, not moving, just standing in the open. No face, no clothes, just a tall, thin body. Skin gray like stone, arms hanging too low. It didn't chase me, didn't speak. It just watched. I turned. I walked. I don't know how long. My legs grew numb, my throat dry. The light faded. I hadn't eaten since morning. I hadn't seen sky in hours. Only trees twisted and close. I reached a ravine, deep, steep, not wide, maybe 15 feet across. But no way around. And that's where I saw it, across the ravine, carved into the side of the rock wall, half hidden by vines. A door, wood, old, reinforced with iron bands. It didn't belong here. There were no houses on this land, no records of buildings. I should have turned back, but I didn't. Something about the door called to me. It felt like an answer. A way out. I climbed down slowly, using the roots and rocks for grip. The forest above me watched silently. When I reached the base of the ravine, I crossed the narrow stream and stood in front of the door. No handle, no lock, just dark wood and those same letters carved into it. SVE. I pressed my hand against it. The wood was warm, like the stone. It opened on its own, not all the way. Just a few inches, enough to show complete darkness on the other side. I didn't step in. I just stood there, breathing. Then I heard it again. A sound, the first in hours. But it wasn't from the woods. It was from inside the door. A voice. My voice. Whispering something I couldn't make out. But it was definitely me. I stepped back. The door stayed open. I turned to climb back out of the ravine. But the path was gone. The walls had changed. Smoother, steeper, too slick to climb. I looked up and saw nothing but trees, leaning inward, closer, almost touching now. The door creaked behind me. Something was waiting. I didn't go inside the door. Not then. I sat at the edge of the ravine for what must have been hours, knees drawn to my chest, watching that black crack in the stone breathe. That's what it felt like the doorway was breathing, expanding, contracting, like something behind it was alive and waiting. I wanted to climb out, scream for help, call someone, but there was no signal, no path, just stone on all sides. And that door, the voice had gone silent, but the echo of it stayed in my mind, my own voice, whispering from a place I'd never been, from behind a door that shouldn't exist. When I finally stood up, the air had changed, thicker, not humid, heavy, like the woods were pressing closer. I looked up and saw the treetops above the ravine had shifted again, closing tighter. And I realized I wasn't under a canopy. I was under something else, like the roots of the forest had flipped, and I was trapped beneath them. I looked back at the door, still open, just barely, still breathing. I took one step toward it, then another. My boots scraped against the rock. I leaned forward. The space inside was pitch black. Not the kind of darkness that comes from absence of light. It was thick, full, like a fog that drank sound. I called out, "Hello?" My voice didn't echo. It didn't carry. It was absorbed. I stepped back again. My breath trembled. I turned, determined to find any other way out. And that's when I saw the figure again, no more than 10 feet away, standing at the edge of the stream, head tilted, watching. No face, no eyes, but it saw me. I knew it did. It raised one arm slowly and pointed toward the door. That was it. No movement, no sound, just that long skeletal finger directing me to go through. I didn't. I couldn't. I backed away. I closed my eyes. I whispered to myself to wake up. When I opened them, the figure was gone. But something else had changed. The door was wider now, fully open. The air pouring from it was colder, carrying a smell I'll never forget, like wet soil, and something rotted deep beneath it. I stood at the edge for a long time. I don't remember how long. Eventually, something in me broke, not from fear, from exhaustion, from knowing there was no other way. I stepped inside, one foot, then the other. The black swallowed me whole. There was no floor, no walls, just cold. I felt like I was falling, but not fast, slowly, like sinking, my body numb, my thoughts scattering, and somewhere far behind me, the door creaked shut. I don't remember waking up, but I opened my eyes, back in my truck, parked in the same place I'd left it 2 days earlier. My camera was in the passenger seat, the memory card gone, the knife still in my pocket, my clothes wet, my hands stained with dirt. My phone worked again. It was Monday. I had missed 2 calls from the client. I didn't go back to finish the job. I didn't answer the messages. I drove straight to a motel 2 counties over and stayed there for 3 nights. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I kept seeing the door, feeling the air from inside it, hearing that whisper, my own voice, calling my name from somewhere far beneath the earth. I quit that job a month later, moved west, away from the mountains, away from the trees. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind stops and the world is too quiet, I hear it again, the voice, my voice, calling from inside the dark. And once, just once, when I looked in the mirror, I swear I saw something standing behind me, tall, still, gray, watching. I turned. There was nothing there, but the smell in the room was wet dirt, and the floor beneath me felt warm. My name is Mark Jensen. I'm 31 years old, and I work for a regional power company that services the rural mountain communities in eastern Tennessee. My job's mostly routine, driving between substations, checking transformers, inspecting utility lines after storms. It's quiet work, solitary. I cover a lot of forgotten roads, places GPS doesn't always reach, towns where people still pay their bills in cash or don't answer the door when you knock. I'm used to being alone. I don't spook easy. But there's one call I took in October of 2021 that's still with me. One job that made me question everything I thought I understood about these mountains. The report came in as a service disruption. An entire holler had lost power. 4 cabins on the same line. It wasn't uncommon after rain, especially this deep into the forest. But what made it strange was that no one had called it in. The company only knew about it because one of the line meters pinged a failure. They sent me out around 3 p.m. The sky was already graying when I turned off the paved road onto the old gravel route. The farther I drove, the less maintained the road became. By the time I reached the fork where the line map said the cabins should be, the gravel had turned to mud. My truck struggled through it, tires slipping. Trees pressed in on both sides like a tunnel. The place didn't feel right. There were no birds, no insects, not even the usual rustle of leaves, just stillness. I pulled up to the first pole. The line looked intact. No sag, no obvious damage. But the meter was completely dead. I checked the second. Same result. I figured maybe something hit the transformer or the line had shorted underground. I started walking toward the last cabin on foot. The one furthest back built into the slope of the ridge. That's when I saw it. A figure, just ahead, between the trees, standing perfectly still. I called out. No answer. I raised a hand, stepped forward. But when I looked again, it was gone. I thought maybe it was a deer, or someone checking on me from a distance. I kept walking. The third cabin was empty, old, abandoned, it looked like. Windows boarded up. The air around it was stale and still. The front porch was covered in dead leaves, but they hadn't been disturbed. No footprints, no sign of life. The power meter was gone like it had been ripped off. Not cut, not unscrewed, just gone. I backed away and continued up the hill to the fourth and final house. That's where things got worse. The cabin looked newer than the others, but the windows were all black, covered from the inside. The front door was ajar. I called out again. "Power company, anyone home?" Nothing. Just that hollow silence. I stepped onto the porch and the boards creaked under my boots. I pushed the door gently open. The inside was dark, cold. No lights, no sound. The smell hit me first. Mildew, rot, something metallic. The place looked abandoned, but lived in. Furniture covered in sheets. Cans of food stacked neatly on the counter. A rocking chair turned toward the wall. But no people. I should have left. I should have called it in and walked away. But something made me stay. I moved through the living room slowly, shining my flashlight over the floor. That's when I saw the markings. Scratches, dozens of them, on the hardwood. Deep gouges like someone had dragged a blade or claw through the floor in wild, random patterns. They didn't form words, just jagged, looping lines, like something trying to write but didn't know how. I checked the hallway. More scratches, on the walls, on the ceiling. I stepped into what looked like a bedroom. The smell was worse there. Something sweet and sour, like meat left in the sun. In the center of the bed, laid out perfectly, was a pile of dead leaves, arranged in the shape of a person, not stuffed, flat. Just the outline, torso, arms, legs, head. I didn't go any further. I backed out of the room, flashlight shaking. As I turned back into the hallway, the rocking chair in the living room began to move, just slightly. A soft, slow creak, back and forth. I froze. The air felt heavier, like the whole house was breathing. I stepped out the front door and didn't look back. When I reached the clearing where my truck was parked, the figure was there again, standing at the edge of the trees, still, watching. No face, no features, just tall, wrong. I blinked and it was gone, but the silence stayed. I didn't sleep that night. I checked into a cheap roadside motel an hour outside the holler, but even with the door locked and the TV on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. I kept seeing it, that figure in the trees, still, silent, like it belonged to the forest more than any animal I'd ever seen. I told myself I was just tired, that I'd imagined things, that maybe squatters had gotten into those cabins and trashed them, that the scratching on the walls and floors had a rational explanation, that the rocking chair had moved from the wind. But I knew better. The silence back there hadn't been natural. It hadn't been empty. It had been watching. I didn't report what I saw. I logged the power failure, marked the lines for deeper inspection, and drove back to the main office the next day. But that wasn't the end of it. A week later, I got a call from dispatch. They were sending me back to the same holler. This time, not for a repair, for a shutdown. Apparently, the property had been repossessed by the county. No living relatives. No response from any of the addresses listed in the records. The power company was cutting off the lines entirely. They needed someone to deactivate the junction and secure the remaining hardware. I said I'd go. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that it wasn't real, that I hadn't seen what I thought I saw, that the woods weren't hiding anything. The sky was overcast when I drove back in. The road seemed narrower than before, the air heavier, the trees leaned closer. I told myself it was just weather, just nerves. But as soon as I stepped out of the truck, the silence returned. That deep, suffocating quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my boots in the gravel and the soft hum of the still active lines overhead. I made my way back to the first pole, shut off the power, moved to the second, the third. I didn't look at the cabins, I didn't want to, but as I approached the final pole, the one closest to the fourth house, I saw something hanging from it, a strip of cloth, torn, dirty, tied in a knot around the wood. It wasn't there last time. I walked up slowly, reached out. The cloth was damp, stained. It smelled faintly of something sour like vinegar and blood. My stomach turned. I looked back toward the cabin. The front door was closed this time, but the windows weren't black anymore. They were open, curtains fluttering slightly. There was no breeze. I could feel it, that weight again, the pressure in the air, like something waking up. I turned back to the pole, climbed the steps, opened the box. My hand shook. The main disconnect was jammed. It wouldn't budge. I took out my wrench, tried again. That's when I heard it, the rocking chair. That same creak, soft, slow, coming from the cabin, but louder than before, like it was right on the porch. I froze. Then, the scratching sound. Not wood this time. Metal. Behind me. I turned and looked down. At the base of the pole, something had been dragged through the dirt. A long mark, deep, leading away into the trees. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. But I could feel it again. That same figure, watching, waiting, just out of view. I finished the shutdown, left my tools behind, didn't even log the last meter. Just climbed down, got in the truck, and drove. I didn't stop. Not for food, not for gas, not for anything. When I reached the office, I filed the paperwork without notes. No one asked questions. No one had been out there in years. The place had been forgotten long before I arrived. But I couldn't forget. The next week, I checked the shutdown logs. Out of curiosity, the system still showed a faint residual draw. Just a few volts, like something was pulling power from a dead line. I flagged it for inspection, but I never went back. That should have been the end. But 2 nights later, I found something tied to my truck mirror. A strip of cloth, torn, dirty, stained. I didn't touch the cloth. I just stood there in the parking lot, staring at it. Same knot, same sour smell. A slow, tight panic built in my throat. The kind that doesn't explode all at once, but wraps around your spine and squeezes over time. I looked around. The lot was empty. No cars, No wind, no movement, just my truck, and that strip of fabric swaying gently like something had only just tied it. I yanked it off with a rag, threw it in the dumpster, and drove home. But the feeling didn't leave me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house pulled my eyes to the door. I kept thinking about the figure I saw in the woods, the scratching in the walls, the chair that rocked by itself, the whispering silence. I tried to forget, tried to move on, but the mountain wouldn't let go. 2 weeks passed. Then a call came through, not from dispatch, not official. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it later, all I heard was the same creaking chair. No words, just that steady back and forth rhythm. I blocked the number, turned off my phone. The next day there was a knock at my front door. 3 short taps. Then silence. I didn't move. I waited almost 30 minutes before I opened it. No one there. Just a mark. Deep. Deliberate. Scratched into the wood of the frame. A spiral. One long, uneven spiral. Like a map of something sinking inward. I started to wonder if I'd brought something back. If maybe it wasn't tied to the land. But to me, I told myself I was losing it. I tried to get away. I rented a place in Knoxville, an apartment with no trees, no woods, no silence. But it didn't matter. One night, I woke up to find dirt on the carpet, a small pile, as if something had been digging inside. The next night, I heard the creaking again, not in the walls, not outside. It was above me. I live on the top floor. I moved again. I didn't leave a forwarding address, changed numbers, started using cash. I didn't want to be found, not by it, not by anyone. But the feeling stayed. A few months later, I got a package. No return label. Inside, a photo, taken from a distance. It was me, standing next to my truck, at the edge of the woods near that cabin. But here's the part that's never left me. In the photo, I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the shadows of the trees, just barely visible, was a tall figure. No face, no eyes, just arms too long, head tilted slightly. Still, watching. I don't remember anyone being there that day. I don't remember hearing the shutter. But the photo doesn't lie. I burned it that night. I thought that would help. It didn't. Sometimes now, when I sleep, I dream of the 4th cabin. Of the leaves on the bed, shaped like a body. Of the spiral etched into my door. Of a chair that rocks when there's no wind. And in every dream, I wake up standing in front of that same wooden door. The one I never opened. The one I left behind. But it's always open now. Always waiting. And in the dark behind it, I can hear something breathing. Something still whispering in that awful, perfect silence. I don't know how long I have. I don't know how far it can reach. But I can feel it again. Every night. A little closer. The holler isn't on any map anymore. The power line's been wiped from the records. The property erased. Forgotten. But I remember. And I know one day, the knocking will return. And when it does, I won't be able to pretend I didn't hear it. Because some doors, once they open, never really close.